How's it going? I'm Michael Wagisbeck, and my presentation is on heat exchangers. So, first off, what is a heat exchanger? Basically, it is any device that transfers heat from one fluid or gas to another, and this is done without mixing or direct contact between the two fluids. Convection and conduction are involved, and they can be made in many configurations depending on the demand for space. The history, in its simplest form, heat exchangers have been around as long as we have. An example would be the first known home heat exchanger would be when they put rocks on fire and then put that inside their homes for warmth. And another is when Romans are credited with the first central heating method by creating cement basements and lighting fires down there to where the smoke and the hot air rises and heats up the main floor. And they have many uses, from air conditioning to automobiles, industrial plants, refineries, and all that good stuff. So some basic equations. As you can see, the first equation is just a basic heat transfer rate equation with some common nomenclature. The second one is one used for closed system heat exchangers, where it basically follows the conservation of energy equation. And then the third one is used for open system heat exchangers, where you're going to have one of the fluids is released into the atmosphere. So the three basic types of heat exchangers are parallel, cross-flow, and counterflow, and as you can see in the diagrams, they're pretty self-explanatory. One example is a plate heat exchanger, and it's a cross-flow open system heat exchanger, and the most common example is a radiator. Radiators are critical for transportation. They're used in almost all automobiles. And what happens is, as the flow of the radiator fluid goes across through the tubes and the plates of the radiator, the flow of, in this case it'd be air, is sucked in by the fan behind it, and it goes perpendicular to it, and as the air flows across it, it absorbs some of the heat and then is expelled back into the atmosphere. Another example is a shell and tube heat exchanger, and these can be both parallel and counterflow. These are popular for more industrial uses, such as plants and refineries, and they can be very flexible in their shape and design to meet the demands of confined spaces. So the first example is a U-tube heat exchanger, and this one is a two-phase U-tube heat exchanger. A good example is a steam generator, and this example has both parallel and counterflow. As you can see, when the fluid comes in the bottom, the other fluid is coming in the top, and it's initially counterflow, and as the fluid circles around, it becomes parallel flow again as it exits. Another example is a straight tube heat exchanger. This is just a single phase, and as you can see, the fluids enter on different sides. They flow across each other and then exit on the opposing sides. And then a two-phase straight tube is also a condenser, but this one is it's kind of a hybrid between the two. As the fluid comes in on the top on both sides, they're flowing in parallel, and then as the green fluid comes back around, they're again in counterflow. Another example is a phase change heat exchanger, and this one changes the entire state of the fluid, that is, or one of the fluids running in it. And it can, for example, heat water to vapor state and then condense it back down to its liquid state. And a reboiler is the most common example for these. So in conclusion, heat exchangers have been around a long time. They have come a long way as we progress in engineering and newer technology. And everyday activities and functions can't be made possible without heat exchangers. From heating your house or cooling this room to driving your car down the road. And we're relying on them every day in both industrial and personal life. Any questions?
Do you want to work with heat exchangers after graduation?
Probably not.